Welcome to video 3 of the trauma series. If you have not watched the first video where we go in depth of what is trauma, is it real, how it affects the body, that it gets stuck in the body and how to process that. And then video 2 where we talk about emotional trauma specifically and why it's so important to actually be willing to grow and update our tools. And now we're into video 3. It's the most important video, but please remember that we're talking about heavy topics. Please give yourself grace. Please give yourself space and time to work through things. Make sure to have your journal and your favorite writing utensil, favorite color, whatever you want, handy nearby, as we're gonna be going through actually how to process through the trapped trauma that's in the body. This is super important, so let's get right into it. So it is one thing to open your eyes and admit that a change needs to be made. It's a whole other to actually do the work required to achieve that change. It's not easy. It's really difficult. It's a lot of work, but when you get to the other side, I can promise you that it is all worth it. All right, so let's talk about the stages of healing. So stages of healing, you always start with suffering. You work your way through awareness to be aware of the suffering, then you can confront that suffering, you can express it, and then you can go to the final stage of acceptance and actually work through that healing. If you are coming to this video and you're like, I want to heal, like, what do I do? Like, give me the steps. What did you do, right? And I want you to understand that me as a person, I'm a different person than you. I'm a different person than my parents. I'm a different person than my husband, right? My self-healing journey is going to be tailored to me. You know inside what is best for you. You're your best counselor, confidant, you know you. If you feel like you don't worry, we'll get to that. It's super important to know yourself and to be self-aware, but you have to do the work for you. So if you're ready to heal, if you want to know the steps, I'm going to give you some things that you can work through, but ultimately this is your journey. I can't tell you how to do these things, but I promise that you will know for you. First thing is you want to, starting at the top of the circle, and you can pop into the circle at any point in time. That's why it's kind of like an open-ended circle, but we're gonna start at the top and then work our way through clockwise. So rebuilding the ability to trust and an internal sense of safety through secure relationships, right? So you kind of have to practice vulnerability, kind of open up a little bit, have some compassion, some empathy, and then bearing witness to survivors' experience and emotional truth. Allow them to hold space, right? You don't always have to jump in and give advice and tell them what to do, right? Because you're a different person. You don't know what's gonna work for them, but just allowing them to know that they're not alone and that, they're valid just as much as you are, that's huge. And then moving on to the next one, fostering greater capacity for emotional regulation, allowing yourself to hold space and to work through and process your own feelings and validations. And then putting the pieces back together allows you to become more whole as a person and hold space for yourself as well as for others. So let's go deeper into the stages of healing here. So stage 1 is suffering. So stage 1 suffering comes with denial, right? You're denying kind of a part of yourself. You're suffering because you're denying, you're turning a blind eye to what's going on over here. And that's dishonoring your emotions. That's dishonoring yourself. That basically you're telling your internal self that you're not important, that you don't trust yourself, and that you don't need to listen to you, right? Oh, you're hurt, just deal with it. Rub some dirt in it and move on. But you can see that through the years that doesn't serve you, right? That's called suppressing and repressing yourself, your emotions. That after a while is going to want to regurgitate back on you, and you don't want it to become some sort of pea soup situation, because it can become like that. If you keep repressing for so long, it will come back on you with a vengeance. And the things I want you to be aware of is, where are you living, right? If you're dishonoring your emotions, you might not be living in the present moment. So there's this kind of Venn diagram here where we've got the past, the present, and the future. So I want you to kind of ask yourself, where are you living, right? If you're living in the past, then you have guilt, shame, and regret, feeling sad or depressed, dwelling on what happened, replaying events or conversations, and overanalyzing, right? That's living in the past. But if we look at the future, if you're living in the future, you're probably got fear of the unknown. You're worrying about what could happen, feeling anxious for what is to come, overthinking what if scenarios and thinking worst case scenarios, right? Because you're going to those extremes of like, what if I die? What if this happens? Like, you kind of over dramatize. You're making it very extreme. And in both of those scenarios of living in the past or the future, you're not present. You're not being. Those sound kind of stressful to me, right? We want to achieve peace. We want to be at peace. And the way to be at peace is to live in the present. That's where you get clarity, acceptance, joy of being, understanding, inner peace, and you can practice gratitude. Stage 1, suffering. Stage 2 is awareness. You might be feeling a certain way, but maybe you're not quite sure, right? Can you name what, how, and why you feel what you feel? There is no self-development without self-awareness. You can read as many books as you like, but if you're unable to read yourself, you'll never learn a thing. A very smart man, Stephen Bartlett, said that. But like, there is no self-development without self-awareness. If you cannot name what you're feeling or how you're feeling or why you're feeling what you're feeling, if you can't go within and find that out, you need to stop here and actually work through this. So I've got some great resources for you here, dealing with emotions. So when you shut down emotion, you're also affecting your immune system, your nervous system, right? Because we talked about that in video 1 about how your brain is developed and the different parts of it. If you remember that middle part of your brain, the limbic system, your nervous emotional system, your emotions get stuck in the body. That repression of emotion, which is a survival strategy, then becomes a source of psychological illness later on, right? We talk about feeling or experiencing emotions in the body, right? Like, we've had it up to here with people, or, you know, like, that guy he's such a pain in the neck, right? Like, we've got all these emotions, they literally are attached to the body, but if you don't know how to process them or feel them, I recommend going to Therapy in a Nutshell, her YouTube channel. She's got a 30+ video series on processing your emotions called How to Process Your Emotions. She talks about a lot of other stuff, not just processing emotions. 30 videos, it's a lot of information. I believe she says it's about like a year's worth of counseling all wrapped up into like one video series. It is fantastic. I cannot rave and recommend it enough. This is where I went for all of my stuff that I was dealing with, that I knew I was feeling certain ways, but I didn't know how to process them. Like, I could not cry. And I knew that like crying is healthy. But to me, because of like the trauma that I experienced, I felt that it was weak to cry. I felt like I couldn't cry. So these videos were super impactful for me to actually learn and trust myself to feel my emotions, and that it's healthy to do so. One of the other things I came across is the Emotion Wheel by Abby Van Meeuwen. It's fantastic. It kind of shows you like the inner feelings of emotions that everybody's familiar with: anger, fear, joy, sadness. But you've got like secondary feelings and then tertiary feelings, and those go into subcategories. So if you're not aware of kind of where these subcategories, like if you start on the outside of the circle and then go work your way down into the center, then you can kind of figure out what you're feeling and what that kind of ties to. Because sometimes we don't know that, like, for me personally, I felt that I kind of mixed fear and anger a little bit. And typically for me, I kind of live over in the like the fear, the shame sort of area of the circle, but I would love to get over to the joy and the genius circle. So they're there. It's a work in progress, right? You have to give yourself space and time to kind of work through that. And it's not easy, but it's very, very important that you do this work. And then another exercise I have, if you feel like you're just not really tied to your emotions very well, go stand in front of a mirror and make faces at yourself. Actually do like the emotions, angry, and then sad, and like happy, and like what that looks like, and watch yourself in the mirror doing those reactions. I had asked my husband if he felt like I actually showed my emotions on my face, and because, you know, we've had interactions where I'm really upset and he doesn't know, and it's because I'm stonewalled, right? Because like I was taught to not show your emotions, right? Don't show your cards. Don't let the other person know how you're feeling and thinking, because I don't know why, but that's just what we did, right? It was a learned tradition, and I didn't know that I could actually react differently than that. I can be vulnerable, I can be open, and I can be honest and authentic with how I feel. And that has been so freeing, and I want other people to experience that as well. And then stage 3 is confrontation. Stop avoiding how you feel, right? That's probably been your problem this entire time. You're suppressing and repressing and hoping that they just go away, but it's trapped in the body, right? You need to process it. You need to practice that willingness to feel what you feel and to allow it to hold space. It is valid. Even if it's cuckoo, way off the board or whatever, your body felt that way at that time because that's what it needed, right? It experienced a fight, flight, or freeze reaction, and we need to feel that. We need to process that to allow it to be what it is so that it can actually be felt and then it can leave the body. It is not always the traumatic experiences that teach us to doubt ourselves and feel dismissed. It's the people who suggest that it was our fault. It's the environments telling us to move on. It's the messages that dismiss the difficulty of survival in a world that repeats these cycles, right? Because we only know what we know. We only do what we know. And it's time to change that. It's time to find newer, better tools and to use those. So in stage 4 is expression. Now that you've felt your emotions, you've been doing your self-healing journey, all of that, you need to express your emotions in a healthy way. And if feelings could talk, you know, maybe sadness might be telling me I need to cry. Shame might be telling me I need self-compassion. Anger might be telling me I need to check in with my boundaries. You know, my anxiety was always telling me that I needed to breathe. I needed to pause for a second and allow myself to feel like out of control, and to realize that it's okay, that control, like we don't always have control over what's going on. We don't have control over other people and the situation and what's going on, but what we can control is how we feel about it. And sometimes we just need a second to be upset and to kind of grieve. You know, like for my anxiety, it was if things didn't go my way, I felt like I was a failure. And that's not true. Like just because a situation doesn't go well doesn't mean that I didn't go well, right? Like it's this disjointed feeling that we're in charge of these things, but we're not. We don't have control over those things. And then stress might be telling me I need to take it one step at a time, right? If you're living in the future, you're gonna be stressed, and you don't need to be, right? You don't need to worry about tomorrow's worries. You only need to worry about today's. And then stage 5 is acceptance. You're emotionally healed. You've mastered your uncomfortable emotions. You're allowing yourself to feel the broad, entire spectrum of all of the emotions, and the pain is gone. It might not be completely gone, but maybe you've been able to process through some things and it doesn't hurt as bad maybe now. So we're gonna take a 1-minute journal prompt break here. I want you to write down for today, where are you living? Do you feel like you're living in the past? Or do you feel like you're living in the future? And then what are 3 things that you can do for yourself to try to be a pattern interrupt to break you from going to the past or going to the future and trying to find that peace in the present? All right, moving on now, we're gonna be talking about grief and grieving. Through my self-healing journey, I kind of felt that when I would come across trauma, it almost felt like I had to process the grief, or that I was experiencing grief from these situations that I wasn't able to feel back then. Sometimes it's kind of like you're grieving loss of control or loss of time. Like for me, I felt like I lived several years not being authentic and not being able to respond the way that I wanted to respond. And so I had a lot of grief and a lot of shame from all those years lost, all that time lost. But we need to talk about that. We need to talk about the grief and the grieving process. I have a little short story by Nikita Gill called The Children of Grief. Grief's firstborn child is anger, she who storms from room to room, each window rattling in her wake. Destruction, her middle name, and she does not apologize for it. Hurricane in your chest, storm in your soul, she won't release you until you shatter. Grief's second child is sadness, she who crawls inside your bones and stretches her ivy hands till every part of you is constricted inside this web of torment. Tragedy in your bones, decay in your sinews. She will stay until you learn how to use the knife which cuts your way out. Grief's youngest child is healing, she who mends broken souls with lacquered gold, each crack glimmering in the sunlight. You will ask her why. Balm for your wounds, gentle rain for your spirit, she will tell you that what you have grieved was never meant to be forgotten. Right? And everybody knows the stages of grief. I feel like everybody is very aware of the dip down and all the different stages, but you can see from this picture here that not everybody agrees that that's what grief feels like. It kind of feels like a mess of just, you're everywhere. You kind of feel like you're just bouncing on the walls and just kind of going back and forth. And sometimes you feel like, okay, yeah, I definitely dealt with the denial. I definitely dealt with the anger. And then you come to the bargaining and then you're right back to the denial because it's so difficult to process through sometimes. Sometimes this is really deep hurt, right? And sometimes we need to remember to take breaks and to pause and to work through this. Sometimes we just need a moment to just be hurt. And when we allow ourselves to feel that hurt, then we can feel finally ready to move on to the next step. And I think a better accurate picture of what grief looks like is this grief cycle. So you start with the normal functioning, right? And then you have the shock and denial, avoidance, confusion, fear, numbness, blame. And then you kind of move into anger, frustration, anxiety, irritation, embarrassment, shame for what's happened or maybe how you're feeling about what's going on. And then you kind of reach that dip down of the depression and the detachment, feeling overwhelmed, kind of having this sense of blah and lack of energy or helplessness. And I've definitely felt this for myself. And you might kind of hang in this section, you might bounce back, or you might move on to dialogue and bargaining, reaching out to others, or a desire to tell one's story, struggle to find meaning for, what has happened, why did this happen to me, right? You're struggling to find meaning in this issue that you're coming against. And then you can finally move on to acceptance, exploring options, a new plan in place. And that can make you feel empowerment, security, self-esteem, meaning, and then you can return to a meaningful life. It's not going to be the same. You might not be the same person after experiencing that, but it's super important for you to process through that grief, process through the trauma, process through the pain, because you need that pain. You need to learn from that pain to become that person that you need to be. It might be to teach you compassion or empathy or care for others, but trust me when I say that it is something you do need to process. You need to feel. When we felt that trauma the first time, that pain, it was too painful, something that we could not feel. And so we store it away as like a little nut, as a squirrel. Oh, I'll deal with that next season. But it just becomes harder and harder to feel the next time around. And so if you can just learn to practice that willingness to feel that uncomfortableness, then you can start to process through and to heal. As you're going through the grieving process and feeling and processing your emotions in uncomfortable situations and feelings, remember to hold space for others and for yourself. When people see the grief process, they immediately think of a lost loved one. And so I wanted to have an example. The example I'm going to share with grief is, whenever we think about the grief and the grieving process, we think about a lost loved one. And we're not all the same, right? We experience situations differently. We have different circumstances happen, right? So when we come up to somebody that has experienced loss, we always want to say, I'm so sorry for your loss, right? And you think that that's totally an appropriate response. And usually it is, but there might be those people out there where, maybe they had extenuating circumstances, right? Maybe they're kind of happy that person's gone, right? Maybe they feel a lot of shame and a lot of guilt for that feeling, right? So instead of going up to that person and telling them how they should feel, right? Oh, so sorry for your loss. You should feel sorry that that person has passed away. but maybe ask them instead, you know, how are you feeling? Would you like to talk about how you're feeling? And allowing them to hold their own space and to tell you how they're feeling, not you project your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions onto that other person. And don't let the fact that you don't know what you're doing stop you from doing anything. We all start everything from a place of not knowing, walking, reading, dating, working, and through the doing, we learn. We may not get it right the first time, but eventually we know what we're doing. Remember, this isn't easy, right? This is not easy. Take care of yourself and take breaks. And then I want to talk about this kind of room house analogy that when I was going through my own self-healing journey, it kind of felt gross, kind of felt like uneasy, because as you start doing this healing work in that, you have to kind of think of yourself as like a house. And say you're in one room, right? We're going to say that we're in the kitchen, right? Because that's kind of where the heart of the home is for most people. So you go into the kitchen and you rip everything out of the cabinets. You pull out all of your glassware, you pull out all your plates and your cooking pans and your storage stuff, and then you pull out all the stuff in the fridge, all of the rotting food and all the stuff that's expired, and you throw all of it onto the floor. And you're kind of just standing in that room with everything pulled apart, and now what, right? And it can seem daunting and a terrible task, right? And you start in the corner and you start kind of working your way through, and you might get to some things that maybe you're just not sure what the heck this is and where this came from. Did your Aunt Gina give this to you as a wedding gift? You know, are you going to keep it? Are you going to find value in it and you want to store it still in your kitchen, or do you need to donate it on? Do you need to thank it for it being there for the time that you had it and then let it pass on? And as you do all of that work, which it's a lot of work, if you've ever cleaned a house, you know what I'm talking about. It can just seem so daunting. But as you do the work and as you start organizing things and putting things back in new places, maybe they fit better in this drawer as opposed to they were over here in this cabinet. And you kind of reorganize things to fit you and your life better, right? And then you will find that piece at the end of it, after you've organized the entire room to fit your exact needs, how good and clean and nice it feels to be standing in that room and have it completely renovated, and just like the sense of calm and the peace that can kind of come and wash over you. And then please allow yourself that time to just be and to feel that calm and that peace, because eventually you will need to move on to the next room of your house and start that journey all over again, because the tools that are in that room just they're not working anymore, right? And so you got to start somewhere. And then 7 signs that you're healing: you talk about the situation and it no longer feels as painful. You allow your feelings to show instead of avoiding them. You're practicing forgiveness, not just for yourself, but for others, right? Understanding that you've experienced trauma, other people have experienced trauma. You're hurting, they're hurting, right? Because you're either hurting or healing. There's no in between. You stand up for yourself. When you think about your pain, you're grateful for how far you've come. You can share your story with others, and you engage in healthy habits more consistently. I'm so glad that you guys are joining me on this journey. I hope that you found something helpful. You're writing down journal prompts and writing in your journal the things that you're finding that you want to keep for yourself. Remember, I love every single one of you. I hope that you have a great day. Please spread kindness to yourself and to others, and I will see you in my next video.